See, so in the last two class we have discussed about last class we discussed about participatory communication, basically democratic participation, different factors in participatory development, as well as we also generated some idea on uh, the difference between the trust and the society, right? So I'll not continue this because in the next class I'll discuss about CSR, trust, and society, and that is also important. But today I will start the organizational component of the institution or organizational component. When you say, actually, I'm going to focus on the managerial line. Okay, so yes, sir. So when you are talking about the whole nomenclature of the paper suggests that there are participation and management. So if we nomenclature of the whole course is NGO participation and management, right? So if we see NGO participation and management, today I am going to focus on that managerial line. So when you focus on the managerial line, you basically need to understand the organizational component, different kind of organization, different activities actually form that organizations, how to distinguish one organization from another organization, the nature of organization, that distinctiveness is very very important. And so we will discuss some of the features and characteristics, principles which will help you to define the organization. So NGO itself is an organization. So we have already studied varieties of NGO concept and which come under a very key or umbrella framework. But it is important now to think in a managerial point of view. And from managerial point of view, as I will tell you, that managerial point of view is different from the very administrative point of view. Okay, so management is different from administration in a way that management is much more related to execution of the task and doing of the task instead of thinking and determinative act of administration. So when we say administration is highly determinative, and the administration is also much more associated with the thinking performance. But when you talk about the management, it is a middle level and lower level task. It is much more related to this execution and doing of things. Okay, so that is the core distinction between administration and management. Before you understand this organization, this is very very important to understand the distinction between administration and management. First is that administration is highly determinative, while management is not determinative. Management is executive and it is related to the execution and doing of task, which is a middle level and low level task, whereas administration has a higher level and top level task. And mostly we see that the word administration is usually fit into the government and public sector organizations and undertakings, right? But management is much more appropriate to business line or private sector organization. At the same time, we also see that in management, we focus more on direction and organizing. But in administration, we focus more on controlling as well as commanding. Okay, so that is the different organization. Organizing part is similar, but the thing is that in administration we focus more on controlling and commanding. In management, we focus more on directing as well as organizing. At the same time, we also see that in management, most of the time, uh, you try to, as a manager, you try to fulfill some of the stated objectives and policies which are already there in this organization. But as an administration, so as a person in administration, you will think in a different line. You will always look for the public opinion and opinion of the person, which will help you to even look into the existing policies and even frame a new policies, frame new objective as well as new vision. Okay, so that is the difference between administration and management. So some stated objectives and policies are already there, and management will always try to fulfill those objectives, work in that line. But in administration, we get to see that Even if there is no objective, on the basis of people's opinion, public opinion do matter in matters related to administrations, and they will try to take opinion from the public and also improve upon the objective if there is an objective which is already set or already stated. And if there is no objective, then it will also people's opinion help to frame that objective, help to frame the policy of the administration. So when you talk about the management, you talk about NGO management. No, management is something very integral to each and every organization. Right? When you say organization, family is also an organization, a club, a school, right? University, college. So these are some of the organization of formal structure. Organization can be a formal or informal. Right. Formal or informal, these are the two basic variety of organization. When you say a formal organization, you do have a formal structure, you do have a hierarchy, you do have a principle, scalar principle based on which roles and responsibilities are also fixed upon and distributed. And you do have a chain of command, you do have a unity of command, you do have a span of control in a formal organization, right? But in informal organization, you actually see similar to formal organization, informal organization do follow some rules, as not rules, role and responsibilities, in contrast to rules and regulations of formal organization. Are you getting? So when you talk about this two variety of organization, like a formal organization and informal organization, informal organization is basically referred to the structured set of pattern activities which is mobilized and implemented through a process, and which also try to achieve, in a way which try to achieve a stated objective and purpose. So here you actually focus on the hierarchy of action, you focus on division of work, you focus on delegation of authority in formal organization, you focus on fixing of certain responsibilities, roles and responsibilities through rules and regulations. You also here focus on that legal status. So in formal organizations, we basically talk about the legal status. Legality is very important. So NGO is basically a formal entity. It's a formal entity because NGO has to be registered under Societal Registration Act. So legality of the organization is what makes formal organization distinguished from non-formal organization. And also centralization. When you talk about the centralization, you see the flow of communication. Flow of communication is usually in a formal organization is maintained through upward to downward. So it's a downward flow of communication when command, instructions, warnings, commendations, recommendations, as well comes from upward to downward, right? And it is also, you see, through which some distinct role and responsibilities are being assigned. So fixed role and responsibilities are being assigned, so you are not confused with what to do, what not to do. So because you are assigned to do some set of work, so, and that set of work is also written. So there is a written code of conduct, there is a written rules and regulation that will make formal organization distinguished from non-formal organization or informal organization. Right. At the same time, you also see there is a centralization. There is centralization, but at the same time, there are also different centers in a formal set of organization. There are different centers, and different centers are seen in formal organization in a way which will help an organization head relieve of some of the burden of taking some decisions. So you see there are different centers where decisions are taken. So you cannot even say that decision making is completely centralized, but also through delegation of authority, which is another principle of formal organization, through which you see decisions are also um, decentralized, not even decentralized, certain decisions are like delegated upon, so conferred upon to a subordinate to take, to relieve the burden of the superior strata of the organization. So there is also a distinction in formal organization between line and staff, line and sub, superior and subordinate, like that way. So every time you need to uh, take permission from superior, and there is also step-by-step way of doing. Step-by-step way of doing, which is not determined by the members of the organization, members liking and disliking. So so the work which is at the disposal of someone will always take a delay. So it might take an inordinate delay. So these are some of the disadvantages also. So you see, informal and informal organization, they do have a own set of characteristics and the features, and also they do have some advantages as well as disadvantages. As you see, informal organization, you see these are deliberately formed, right? Whereas informal organization are not deliberately formed. These are spontaneously formed. And informal organization can be formed in the shadow of or under the shadow of formal organization, right? Which may be result of some personal bonding among few members, social interactions. It might be the consequence of social needs, social satisfaction. Okay, and that social interaction, social bonding, and belongingness of a few members within themselves, which will make them to form an association. So that association, that informal organization, usually born out of the social need to talk, need to interact, need to share emotions. Okay, and that to feel that belongingness, need to share your, like, likings and dislikings. So that is the that's what stimulated social informal organization to form. At the same time, it may be outside the formal organization, and it might be within the formal organization, or in the shadow of formal organization. So some of the similarities and distinctiveness are there in informal organization, similar to, like, formal organization. But you see, in informal setup also you get to see leadership, you get to see leaders, you get to see followers, you get to see some of the roles and responsibilities which are divided and distributed. You also get to see a goal and purpose, like formal organizations. But unlike formal organization, you see, in informal organization have have no fixed responsibilities. There are rules, but no fixed responsibilities, no hierarchy. Okay, and like unlike formal organization, and no, you see, no chain of command, and no downward communications. Okay, that communication is always upward. Hmm. So like that. So these are the two, like, distinct between formal and informal organization. So what you actually need to understand is the difference between this administration and management. Here we are not talking about NGO administration, we are talking about NGO management. So when you are talking about management as a representative, you need to think at managerial line. When you think at managerial line, let me tell you that it's very important to understand the objective, vision, and mission. So in the PPT lectures which I have already distributed in the group, if you go through there, I have mentioned about this objective, how objective is being set, how objective is different from vision and mission of one organization. So when you are talking about management, you think in line of planning, because management is all about planning, right? It is all about planning. Planning, what is planning? You tell me. What is planning? Following certain rules and like achieving a certain goal. Specific plan. Laying down the groundwork for something. Sorry? No, laying down the groundwork or foundation for something. Laying down the, yeah, groundwork or foundation. Foundation of some foundation. And deciding what to do, like the steps to be taken. Right, yeah, good. Yeah. It is a blueprint or a framework of the whole activity that sorry? It is a blueprint or a framework of the whole activity which is going to be done. Good, good. Blueprint of this activity. So planning involved that rational decision making, right? So rational task. So you were sitting there today. Okay. Okay. What is your take on planning? Okay. Okay. Good. So I usually see him sitting beside you. Okay. Oh, that is the reason. Okay. Chalo. So when you talk about these objectives, so it is very very important. So planning. Today we are not going to discuss about the planning, but yeah, planning it is very very important to analyze the situation, right? So as it involves that rational decision making and step by step action. And as you have said that it is also a preparation of blueprint and also create a groundwork or foundations for meeting some future goal and objectives, right? So here what is important is to analyze the situation. For planning you need to analyze the situation, you need to understand the problem of the community. Analyze the situation and understanding the problems to different thing. So you analyze the situation, analyze the village, and if you want to make a policy, also there is pre-planning analysis is also there, and you need to study the policies which are already there, and then you try to relate it to the society, the situation which is which is actually there, the kind of situation, the kind of problem. So problem is different from the situation because situation is something very broad and it is also at times not that precise. So you need to understand the situation. And when you say the issue is basically the situation. So you talk about the problem means more minor problem, not at macro level you need to study. You also need to study at micro level, like a family problem, like that members of the family, the kind of problem they are facing, they are suffering. So that micro level it is like problem, maybe you see issues, maybe that student illiteracy in a village. So that might be an issue. So problem will be different. Illiteracy because of teachers' absenteeism, illiteracy because of low level of social infrastructures, right? There is no school in the village. So that might be the problem. So problem will be much more accurate and much more precise than the issue. So issue will be the illiteracy. Right, that way you need to analyze the situation first, situation of a village, situation of a locality, and then you need to come down to some of the problem, micro problem. So it's very very important. Then it is also important for you to study what is important, to study the problem, the extent of the problem, the population who are affected by the problem, the geography which does matter, geography and the locality, and the time and duration. So making planning, these factors are very very important. So even when I'm telling you to study the organizations, the managerial component, I actually want you to study the managerial component of that organizations, how roles and responsibilities are being distributed, social audit is being created. So the kind of like the vision they do have, whether they have achieved that vision or not. So it's very very important. And when you are talking about the vision, objective, as well as mission, you see things are integrated. So it's very very important even to find an integration into and connection into all these component. Like vision is usually different from objective, but it is also tied to planning, right? So when you are talking about the vision is something um, uh, in which direction an NGO will, an organization will actually work on. So it is a direction of activities. Okay, so it will give you a direction of activities, and that is the vision. When you are talking about the mission is basically the scope of activities, like breadth of activities, scope of activities, and specialization, the kind of cultural values that an organization have, and that is the mission. And when you are talking about the objective, Objective is different from purpose because aim is different from objective. Goal is different from objective because objective is much more targeted then objective is targeted then the purpose may be purpose of university is to impart education, purpose of hospital is to provide health care. But the very purpose of organization will be different from the objective. Objective will be much more targeted to achieve at one period of time. So objective maybe you cannot even say that objective will always be tangible. Always an objective can be intangible also. But it's always better that if objectives are measurable, which can be achieved at a period of time, so you assign a particular time to objective while you decide the objective. You also draw some objective and you assign a particular time. And that is related to the situation analysis and the problem analysis, issue analysis. Okay, so it is important on your part also to also draw a vision, mission, and an objective. You can take it as an exercise so that it will help you to uh, to plan for the welfare program. So it's very important to plan for a welfare program, right? And hence it is important to draw some objective. And let me tell you, objective may be intangible and tangible. How it can be intangible and tangible? Tell me. Tangible is something which is seen. Yeah, which is measurable, which is calculative. Calculative. And how objective can be intangible and tangible? In form of values, like what. Right. Something like that, which we cannot be seen, but we are establishing. For example, values like kindness is something intangible. So something like that, objective, intangible, objective, like which cannot be seen, but which is established. Right. Good. When you are talking about this objective, intangible objective, you are talking about ethics, moral, and the values which we try to achieve at one period of time. Right. At the same time, objective might also get placed, like in a clashed or come in conflict with another objective because objectives are relative, no? And it always objectives are put in a sequence, okay, one after another. So it is also all the objectives are related. All the objectives are also it should be relevant, related, and put in a sequence. And it might also come in conflict with another objective. And you need to. It is very important to study the external environment in order to draw the objective because external environment will give you the very basis of like essence of the objective. Even objective is the essence and basis of any organization, essence of basis of even NGO. It is the basis of an NGO. It will also minimize the misunderstanding and minimize the conflict in an NGO. Objective will always minimize the conflict, minimize the misunderstanding in any organization, setting the objective. At the same time, setting the objective is very important because it will also help to legitimize the actions of the organization. Right. And it is important to study the external environment. And let me tell you that we will also come to organizational approaches. But here I'll tell you the importance of external environment which will help to set the objective. Like the political, we talk about this political stability of the nations, that political uh, stability of one particular government, and also flow of capital, whether that policies will prevent the flow of capital or restrict the flow of capital, the tariff, the taxation policies, which are also important to set the objective. Some economic component are also there, like availability of raw material. So because you will need to build these infrastructures, so you need to look at this availability of raw material, transports, everything that will also be taken into account in order to make objective. Then what is important is the socio-cultural values. When you're talking about this the mobilizing the community, because your objective is directed towards that, it's very important to understand the basic level of literacy of the community, the religious affiliation, other cultural affiliation of the people of that organization. It is important now, religious and cultural affiliation is important, and ethnic affiliation of the people uh, in that community and in that locality, in that geographical constituency. Plus, what is important is the rate of urbanization and rate of social change. So rate of urbanization is very, very important to set an objective, and rate of social change, because ultimately you would try to find out whether you can make them accept social change or not. Accept, make the community accept social change. You know why nomenclature is NGO participation and management? Because management is going hand in hand with participation. So management is something which will also go hand in hand participation. There are different form of participation. Like you actually see, there is a participation that is called missionary participation. Missionary participation is different from bureaucratic participation. Okay, and bureaucratic participation is different from participatory participations. And when we try to achieve communities' participation, that is also one objective. Okay, that is one objective, to achieve communities' participation. And that objective, that is not the vision is different, to eradicate illiteracy or even to eradicate the poverty to certain level. That might be the vision, that is future oriented. But when you are talking about this participation is one objective always of one NGO, of an NGO, of an organization. So now when you are talking about new managerial approach, they always talk about participation. Now you see, I will integrate everything. So when we are talking about this managerial line, this new management has also certain approaches. Okay, so earlier we had classical approach to study the management, and now we have modern approach to study the management. When you talk about the classical approach, earlier we have scientific management. Okay, scientific management is also to an extent, to a degree, let me tell you, to a degree newer to classical approach. Classical approach is based on control and rule of thumb. Okay, so I have already said it, you are supposed to do it like that way. So, but in contrast to classical, you say classical approach, we do have a scientific approach which is less modern, but to certain extent it is modern in doing things in an organization. Okay, so I'll also draw it. Should I write down or it is, you are following, no? What I'm getting, you are following. If you are following, then I'll not. Okay, so when you're talking about this scientific management approach, in contrast to classical management approach, it talks about the harmony. It talks about science, but not discord. You know, it also talks about harmonization of activities through coordination instead of individualism and concord or discord. It also talks about you say right man for right work. It talks about reduction or elimination of wastage. It talks about proper training, instructions, proper manual, which is to be received by the workers. It actually talks about, you see, it talks about cost effectiveness. It also talks about the social cost analysis, which is very, very important, social cost analysis or cost benefit analysis. It also talks, it also speaks about the see the standardized rules and regulations and quality control. Quality control is important, and then it focuses on a standard output and standard productivity. So you see, that's how it is different from classical management. Classical management, there is a clear, like, division of work, definitely. And it is also like in classical managerial approaches, we see there is less chance of participation from the from participation of the workers who are actually working at the management line. In scientific management also, you cannot say that workers have freedom to do what they want to do. No, but to certain extent, management is being streamlined. It is made scientific. In what way it is scientific? It talks about increased productivity with the help of standard equipment. You see. So productivity is there. If we say productivity of the student, okay, you say we have equipments. So if they are trained and also proper instruction is there, okay, in that way it is scientific. Proper instructions, proper manuals are being given. There is equipment, they can use standard equipment. Yeah, AppCP software is there. Okay, not Evit. Okay, so we have bought this. So it's standard equipment, standard, you see, infrastructures, which will also determine the output and productivity of 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 the organization. And then quality control through research. How will you control the quality? Control the quality of any activities or output through research and development, right? How That's how you can check the quality, you can control the quality. Then it also focuses on, you see, focuses more on elimination of waste, proper use and optimal use of resources. And for that, it actually focus more on exploitation. So in scientific managerial line, if you think, it has also some advantages, disadvantages. Disadvantages is that it actually divides the thinking and doing activities separate, you know. So there are activities like there are a group of people who will be planning every time, and a group of people which will not be planning, they will be doing. So this planning and doing, thinking here, planning is equivalent to thinking and doing is equivalent to implementing. These are two separate brands. Okay, and hence at times the doing personals will feel that we are cog, simply the cog. Hmm. So they might feel also, you say, demoralized. And you see, most of the time it also say increasing the increment and the wages, but it also lead to unemployment as well as reduction of wages. Scientific management said that it is very, very important to ensure incentives, it is important to ensure reward, it is important to increase the wage of the members, employers basically in an organization. But at the same time, you also see when you talk about that exploitative nature of work, because you have that equipment, standard equipment, you do have standard measure of quality control. So what do you want to ensure by even buying and purchasing this equipment and installing it? To increase the productivity. So in a way of in line with increasing the productivity, in a way of increasing the productivity, you actually exploit, and manager actually exploit the employers a lot. And at the same time efficiency is being maintained, but that efficiency will also bar the provision of employment. It will mar employment of new, see, like, you know, uh, that fresh blood. So that is also one thing, because you want the existing employers more and more efficient. Okay, so it is coined that that concept is coined by Frederick F. Taylor. So it is very, very important managerial approach. To understand the management. And now also in most of the organization you get to see like they are working in scientific managerial line. So but the thing is that disadvantage is that it actually it creates boredom among the employers. Most of the time they don't feel like to work because they don't have participation in decision making, right? They are simply they're efficient enough to do, they are being told and they will do. So they do not have a decision, they do not have a thought. So that has also reduced them to a kind of boredom, and they are being exploited a lot to increase the productivity of this organization. So their needs, their liking, dislikings are not taken into consideration. And that is one important, like, you know, lacuna of scientific management. Although it talks about the harmony, it talks about cooperation among the workers and among the employers, cooperation among the subordinates, and for increasing the cooperation and also increasing the production. Cooperation is important to increase the productivity, and for that, and this management always try to provide some reward and incentive. So that is for the good. That are some of the, like, you know, benefit of scientific management approach or advantage of scientific management approach. But it nowadays it is not that popular. Scientific management approach is not that popular because it is not participatory. Okay. Now we also have another, after scientific management approach, we have an approach that is called system approach. System approach, which integrates the task, integrates the procedure of organization, the task of the organization, the procedure of the organization, Then you see integrates the the technology, hmm, uh, and manpower, and try to create a holism. So it is, see, it is better than scientific management approach. Like you have an example of cybernetic model here. I'm telling you that in system approach you also have a cybernetic model. Cybernetic model in actually it talks about feedback mechanism. You know, feedback mechanism, how feedback can control the output, feedback can control the performance. Okay, so basically it refers to interaction of the organization with the external environment. Okay, interaction of the organizational head, organizational decision maker with the external environment, and also take the input from external environment and frame the policy, change the policy, existing policy, try to bring something new in it, adapt changes, correct the mistakes. Okay, so it's like that. So when you talk about the system approach, it also integrates the task, it integrates the human resources, technology, through which it collects the feedback. Technology, human resources, task, as well as procedure. Okay, so system approach is different from that scientific approach. Scientific management, sorry, manpower, human resources, manpower, as well as procedure. So it integrates these four component and achieve that holism in this organization. And how it is different from scientific management? It is different from scientific management in a way it tries to take the feedback and opinion from external environment and incorporate into feedback. Okay, so you see that in even a school, hmm, how decisions are being taken. So any policy in a school, any policy in university, who are the stakeholders? A set of code of conduct rules regulations are there. Apart from written rules regulation, apart from that, who are the stakeholders? Parents are also stakeholders, students are also stakeholders, right? And then university, that authority, no doubt, various laws and external bodies which have, like, you know, we have in board of directors, we have people from media, even there are people from media, they might be, and a recognized person from any organization, they do have a stakeholder. So everybody has a role in making the law and the policy, right? And that is transformed into whatever law, whatever, like, you know, input received from different actors will be transformed into program and transformed into output. Output are your degree with values and skills, right? So have you seen that? So that is also another kind of cybernetic model. So taking the opinion and point of views of and perspective from all the stakeholders and convert it, transformed it to a program. Transformed it into a program as well as transformed it to output based on skills and values. Output are the you are the output. Okay, you are output because you got a degree, you have also attained some values after studying for 2 years, you have attained some values, right? Obtained some of the values, embrace those values, embrace some of the skills, you have also developed some skills, acquired some skills, right? So you are the output, and also taking the point of views and perspective from different stakeholders, we make what, we make the program. Like we have a C4D. So decision is not, like, you know, taken by HOD, decision is not taken by a faculty member. So there are component from you even. So as a classmate of you, or not classmate, your senior, one of your senior has said that we want PR component in that course. So like that way, you can also be a component. Many people are looking for that public relation and corporate relation component in this course. So that is a feedback. We convert it to program and output. So that is a cybernetic model, taking the feedback with the help of technology, and technology can be paper is also a technology, form of technology, right? With the help of technology, with the help of manpower, with the help of, you see, with the help of the procedure, a proper procedure, and uh, and what, tools, task. task which is to be performed, and accordingly they will adapt some changes if changes required. Right, they'll change the whole budgeting, they'll change the funding, they will also correct the errors which are there in it. Who's going to sleep now? So it's like that. So that is a cybernetic model in contrast to scientific management. Then moving on to next model, we have an ecological model, a human relation model. Okay, first, a third model is human relation. Human relation approach, you might say. So it basically focus on human relation. In scientific relation, you did not have that scientific management did not focus on human relation at all. So Elton Mayo is the person who focuses on human relation and participation. Here the participation is not bureaucratic and imposed. In scientific management, participation is there, which is bureaucratic. As I have told you, there are different types of participation, and one is zero participation and negative participation. Right. Zero participation when there is no incentive from the community people to participate. Negative participation when there is incentive, but at the same time, incentive is there, but you see that external agency won't let them rather participate in their own way. They will make them participate in their own way. So this is an imposed participation. So they want participation, but at the same time they will also won't let them participate. So there is also a patterned actions which is being determined by that organization, that you need to work in that pattern or you need to participate in that pattern, and that is a bureaucratic participation which is there, which is seen in scientific management approach. But in human relation, in ecological approach, you won't get. It's a modern approach to management. Right. In human relation, you focus on human relations. You focus on the interactions among the, you focus on the social interaction and interaction among the informal groups also. Okay, so here also it is very very important to understand the leadership. I'll not discuss about leadership today. So, but the type of leadership which an organization have is very very important. Then also ecological approach, slightly, that is the, I'll come back to human relation approach because we have to discuss more about this approach now. Then next is ecological approach, when you try to understand the external environment. External environment, when you say ecology, that ecology means ecology composed of physical environment, then socio-economic system. Right, so it is conditioned by this physical environment, it is conditioned by history, it is conditioned by socio-political that impetus, okay, to take decision. So decisions are not independent of history. So what is the past account? Decision is not independent of the needs and priorities of the people of that locality also. Okay, so decision is not independent of the government values. Okay, so you also see that whole ecology. So it is that system management is conditioned by the history, conditioned by the culture, conditioned by this physical environment. So you take into consideration the people's need, like, dislikes. It's very very important, the physical environment. Okay, the overall physical environment. Study the past record is also very very important. Okay, and socio-economic incentive, very very important. So so ecological approach help you to also design that objective, because many a time you see that environment may be turbulent environment, unpredictable environment, there are calamities at times, and at times frustration also build up. Okay, that kind of environment you might also work in. So you see the mood of that situation, and things may be very restrictive, like there are certain laws which will restrict you, socio-political laws which will restrict you to work in certain directions. So restrictive environment. Okay, turbulent environment, you also find that many a time environment might be you see very hostile. Okay, so you will also feel that every time you try to work, like, you will be prevented, you are prevented to do in um, work in particular directions, or very very hostile, there are enemies. So in that environment, how will you deal with? So it's important to have an understanding of the history, past record, and the government, which is very very influencing in deciding the management of one organization, the stability of the government norms, rules, regulations nowadays. So, see, all these actors are interdependent now. The NGOs, government, right, and other civil society actors. So, in ecological approach, actually takes into account all the interdependence of all the actors. Okay, okay, yeah. So this is important, and then we also see here. Okay. Uh, then what is important for you is it is also important to so what I have discussed today, you understand? First, it is difference between administration and management, difference between formal and informal organization. Formal organizations are always certified organizations, so they are also mentioned in an organizational cert. But informal organizations do not have an organizational cert, and informal organizations are spontaneously created. Let me tell you, informal organizations are spontaneously created because it comes out of personal bonds, social interactions, that belongingness will also help to form that informal organization under the shadow of formal organizations. Whereas formal organizations are directionals, okay, deliberately created organization. So directed to achieve certain aims. So formal organization do have a structure, do have a pattern of activities that will make the structure. So it has a process, right? Formal organization is highly impersonal at the same time and rational in activities. But informal organizations are structureless. Informal organizations are based on passion and emotions instead of reason. And informal organization is also is is what at the same time it's emotive at the same. And many a time it is unpredictable. So stability is what we get to see in formal organization. Formal organization is very very stable, you know, but informal organizations are not that stable. Okay, unpredictable. Informal organization at times the behavior is very unpredictable. The way it communicates. You see, have you seen rumors, grapevine? These are more in informal setup. So in informal setup, you get to see the factionalism. You get to see the conflict is much more political factions. They try to put one group down. Like that is an informal setup. They do not have a formal setup. I'm not talking about political party. When political party, there is a hierarchy. But in informal setup, so you get to find rumors, the role of rumors and grapevine communication, misinformation is more and more because there is no channel of communication which is directional and which is like downward, from upward to downward. Okay, and hence you can't even rely the information which is being circulated. But the thing is that in informal organization, advantage is that informal organization will help you to act flexible way. That is one advantage. At the same time, it also helps you to boost your self image and the performance. Self image, your self performance, because you are also guided by those like minded members. Okay, some roles are assigned because somebody is very emotional to you, your need, and roles are being assigned like that way. And at the same time, that person you also surrounded by your friends, even friends setup, group of 4 members, informal organization. It's a group setup. Any group is an informal organization, help you to boost your self-image and 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 confidence and performance. At the same time, we also see that informal organization, as it works under the shadow of formal organization, it will always help formal organization to achieve its goal. So in each and every formal organization, there are informal groups, right? It helps to achieve the goal. You get to see the strong bonding in informal organization. Trade union usually said it's informal organization. Any member is being fired, the whole member will come and sit and then they will put themselves in strike and go against its authority. Like that way. You see, there is a very strong bond among the members. Right, but in formal organization, you see, there are certain advantage is that communication is very, very effective. Communication is always informed and it is reliable. But at the same time, that you get to find uh, mm, that apart from that fixed responsibilities, no, they're not these people. Apart from fixed responsibilities, um, the members are not interested to work in different line, and at times originality and innovation is also stifled because you are always assigned certain set of tasks, so there is no flexibility of working, and it also lead to inordinate delay and red tapeism because you need to go step by step. So disposal of work is at department because you also talk about this recording of this information, performance budgeting, even record of information, the way cost is being incurred, like that way. So record is much more important here. In any bureaucratic organization, record is very, very important. So informal setup also record is important. In that way, it will also lead to inordinate delay and red tape. Okay. So you see, but at the same time, there is centralization of activities, division of work, delegation of authority. So these are some of the principles which are very, very important to understand organization. So these are organizational principles, and these principles are also known as the Scalar principle. You know. So, okay then.